Welcome to another episode of the Rest and Recovery Podcast. And today I have Ari Tulla from Elo Health or Hello Health. Sorry, I mispronounced that. A nutrition company and based out of San Francisco. So, Ari, thank you so much for joining me.
Scott, great to be here.
So it's spelled ELO Health, and I corrected myself. It's pronounced hello, as I understand it. And keep me honest. So what does that word mean exactly?
Yeah, great question. So I'm from Finland. Originally, I've been living in the Bay Area for 15 years now, and it's tough to find words nowadays for companies or ideas or things. Every word possible has been used, and people went to crazy stuff like Flickr and whatever you had a few years ago. So I love using Finnish names as names of companies and things because it's a pretty obscure language. It's kind of like a Navajo language that it doesn't relate to any other language really, and most words are very different. So my company is called Elo Health. You can say Ilo or Elo depending what you want. And in Finnish, Elo means life, and Ilo means happiness. So I can take both ways.
Gotcha. So I guess that's kind of the basis of your company is to enable and empower that in folks through nutrition. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I think the key thing, what we're trying to do is to make this idea that I think, you've been talking often in your podcast, for example, and many people here, that is about food being and becoming medicine. And we know that food today is causing a lot of the illness we have in our society. Maybe half the people who are dying too young or too early because of the metabolic conditions or lifestyle conditions. Think about type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and even many cancers. So we're trying to build a company that can help you to get the right nutrition to stay healthy. And I think in a medium, long term also, we hope to be able to help people who already are chronically sick and be able to help them to reverse some of the conditions they have.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly an admirable mission and like you said, kind of an unfortunate growing one. And it really does boil down to the things we're consuming around nutrition. It's the food we're eating and the unfortunate, I guess, unintended consequence of some of the food supply and how it's been kind of adjusted and our bodies are not liking it too much. So we have these gaps in our systems to require kind of supplementation basically as a foundation to sustainment.
Yeah, there are a lot of issues, and I think I like kind of the words you often underline. I think recovery is of course one of the key pieces, and I think about human health very broadly as a combination of being able to get the right fuel, the nutrition, that's very key. The recovery, sleep, mindfulness, kind of the mental side is a very key. Yeah. And then you have the third part that I call movement. We can call it exercise, activity, whatnot. But I mean, if you think about human health and the people who are getting very sick, it's not really about are they exercising. I mean, you can train. It's really great if you exercise and you're active, but you don't really need to go run marathons to stay healthy and live a long life. I mean, look at the people in Okinawa and Sicilia and other places where people live 100 years old. I mean, they don't run marathons. I mean, they just eat in moderation the right type of food, and they have a really good social bondage with people to the old age. They are not alone. They are together in a family or in a village setup. So those are the most important things, I think, when you think about, in the end, the good long life. And, every one of us will wake up 5 a.m. and go run outside in dark. I mean, we often do it and, it feels good. We get addicted. But I don't think that will be the way to live maybe the best life or the longest life possible.
Yeah, that's a great point. I like the point you make on the culture piece and how I think culturally, at least in the US, it seems we've gotten away from those types of things a little bit, where you mentioned a few of them. One that came in mind too is India. Culturally, a lot of it is they'll go for a walk together in families and oftentimes after dinner. And you're hearing around metabolic health that walking right after dinner really helps with, all of that, especially when it comes to insulin resistance, which is a very systemic issue as well.
What a silly thing it is that, you often have the lore that, the dad takes a nap after the heavy meal after work day. Just the wrong thing to do. I mean, like a lot of the things we have in our common lore are just completely wrong. I've been using, for example, Levels Health and other glucose monitors for many years, and I just put the new one on me, actually, the new Dexcom Levels one.
Okay.
And it's interesting that you really can impact a lot in the glucose response by just taking a walk. You don't need to run, but taking like a 5 to 10 minute walk, just like ordering the foods right. And again, it's so interesting that I've been studying this stuff for a long time myself, and trying to have a point of view on things. And it's interesting that the more I read, the more I think about that we often have gotten things right in the past, and we have maybe forgotten some of the good ways of doing things. Because ancestral diet is one area I've been becoming a really big believer. And as I test more of my data, my body, and then I've been testing my extended family in Finland, for example, and I realized that we are quite the same, and we react to the foods in the same way. And then I have friends who come from they come from India, or they come from other parts of the world where they eat very different diet, not only for a couple of years, but maybe 1,000 years. And their reaction is very different to certain foods than mine, because I lived in a very rural society where people were basically foraging still 500 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the most underdeveloped places in the whole Europe, and people living in a very insular society there. So we were having berries and fish and game and milk. And I can have ice cream and I have no spike, but if I have rice or white bread, I mean, I'm going to be spiking for hours. So that's the same makeup that I have, that many of my family members also have. So that's one thing that we don't really do things like. I think the walking was a normal thing in the past. And another thing that we really do wrong often is that how do we order the food? Like you look at the Mediterranean diet, where people always start with the salad and some protein.
Yeah.
The way they eat is actually optimizing your glucose response, and they've been doing that for maybe 2,000 years.
Right.
And today we just do it completely wrong way, and we get these massive spikes, and that of course leads into type 2 diabetes and other issues.
100%. And it's interesting you bring up too around where we come from and what our genetics are kind of used to, what we consume. And I've said this before, for my simple mind, that we're all pretty much walking chemistry sets, and just because one thing is good for you, it may not be good for me. And we have to account for that. And it's kind of hard to do that at scale, but taking your own health under your own wing and taking ownership of that, is really an important thing to really understand how you respond to different things. And it may be quote unquote good, but it may not be great for you.
Yeah, and I like how you put it. And I think there's another point also that we often believe, which is the kind of very different perspective, is that we think we are unicorns and not snowflakes. And that's again, I think, wrong. We are not that different. Yes, I think we might take the glucose response, or take like a response to sugar overall, or fat, or many other things. I mean, we might have maybe 5 or so archetypes. Usually when you think about anything in world or biology, you end up having a few permutations that are the most prevalent ones. And I would be surprised if in a year or two, once we have enough data accumulated by the different companies, we will find that we have maybe 5 or 6 different type of metabolic beings. And if you belong into group 1, you should eat in a certain way. And then we don't need to have a sensor 24/7 telling us what to do, but we might be able to do a simple test, and we can then know roughly what is right for us. And I think that will be a really cool world, because then it goes much beyond the kind of the early biohackers or the early adopters who just want to spend money and learn because they're curious about it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it has to start somewhere, right? And it's an interesting point too, of, the different archetypes, and at some point, you can maybe squash the fad diet debate on whether you should do keto or vegan or whatever. There's going to be some variation of it. It may boil down to what degree you should eat a particular protein or fat or carb or etc. Really to optimize yourself to make yourself feel better.
Yeah, and I'm a big I'm not a proponent of an idea of a diet at all, because I think, and I talk about this a lot, but diet, in my opinion, is an artificial construct we develop because our reptile brain can't comprehend a complicated one. So it's easy to say, I'm not going to eat meat. I'm not going to eat carbs. I'm not going to eat, game, or I'm not going to eat pork. I mean, that's easy to do because then you can, follow it. You can look at the menu and, you eliminate the things that say pork. I mean, that's easy, but it's almost impossible for any person to think about macros properly throughout the week, for example, almost impossible. Right. And then to not even talk about micros. That's way, way too complicated math that, our reptile brain could even do it. But now when we have ability to start deploying some sort of artificial intelligence and algorithms that can actually help you to make better decisions, then I think the question of diet goes away. And I think in a not far distant future, you can eat the food you really love, but the food can be made to be right for you. And that's possibly kind of the idea we're trying to do at Elo, where we try to make it easy. And I think the biggest problem today that is inhibiting us doing those things is the need of tracking. And nothing is more annoying than tracking food intake, because it just sucks. Like, we all have tried
it's work.
MyFitnessPal and others, and I don't know any person who has ever been able to do it for a year, because you do it for 2 months and then you're like, oh my god, it's so tiring, and you learn something. It's not silly thing to do. Putting notes down is good, but it's not meant to be done for years and years. And I was one of the maybe only people who probably have ever used Levels Health, for example, to track every meal I had last year. And that's a lot of work, but I wanted to develop a database for myself that we can then later use at my company as well to learn about my reaction to different foods. And I don't need to, if I get the 40th time that the rice is not good for me, but I love saag paneer, some Indian foods. I love them. I'm gonna eat them at times, but and they always spike me, and I know that. I don't need to be told again.
Right.
But the bottom line is that once we are able to build these ongoing measurements in our health and in our nutrition, we will be able to change the behavior. Because the key thing in any improvement in any area of life is that if you can measure something, you can improve it. And today we have had no measurements at all in nutrition beyond our feeling, like, are we feeling good? Well, half the men in the US today, they have no idea if they're thirsty or hungry. They don't even know that. So our ability to interpret our body is almost zero. And now we are getting measurements slowly. It could be an HRV, it could be heart rate impact, it could be glucose impact. And those are going to tell a lot more. And if they're going to say, green, yellow, red, and if every time you eat pizza you go red, you're not going to eat that pizza for a long time. Maybe you're going to be then going and you find out that, the cauliflower pizza with broccoli will not spike, and you're going to be fine with it. And you can go with that later, because you can make many of the foods we love to be good for you, and they will taste about the same.
That's a great point of just those little adjustments to dial in, so that you don't have to do these like hard abstaining, because you have these, I call it the New Year's resolution, like, I'm going to no longer do this and abstain from things. Well, there might be a slight variation away from that original, that you can still get that good taste, something you enjoy, but it won't have the same negative consequence.
Yeah, the taste is such a key thing in food, because and that's been, I think, the reason why we in my company Elo started now first in blood biomarker and wearable data based supplements first, because the supplements, you don't need to worry so much about the taste. But even when we go into food in a future, we have to be very cautious about food. Are we what we eat, or are we here to eat in a way? Like, some people, they eat for living, and that's the key thing in their life. And give them bad food, and not going to work. And also the culture impact, like I already said. We are used to, the food is your home in a way. Breaking bread is a sacred thing, and in my family, having small children, we try to eat at least once a day to get a meal every day. And man, it's hard at times. Kids are running around, but if you mandate that from the early age, you have this sort of a family bonding moment every day that is hard to do otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, and there's certainly a lot of benefit, and that's probably the best part is that community element, whether it's the time with your family as they grow up. Because I'm similar boat with I've got three young daughters, so they're only going to be in the house for so long, but also just connecting with the folks around you in your neighborhoods or whatever. It's just fun to kind of break bread. So let's circle back to that. We're talking a lot about food, but you kind of implied you might be going that way. But right now you're in a supplemental aspects. You just explain what ELO is and how it works.
Yeah, certainly. So, like I said, food as medicine is something that I'm a big believer in. It became medicine for me a long time ago. My wife had a thyroid tumor 20 plus years ago.
Hmm.
Other thyroid had been removed partially, and it led into autoimmune diseases, hormonal problems, and so forth. Unknown unknowns. We don't know in medicine what to do about. And she
Yeah.
was medicated with certain medications, and the medications, gave a side effect that, it'll be very difficult, if not impossible, to get pregnant ever. And that's tough to know, when you find, your
Wow.
spouse and, you fell in love and then you can't have a family. And we spent about a decade on trying to find a solution. So we went deep in Western, Eastern medicine and finally found a doctor who recommended using also diet. And we went into almost like a keto type of diet. That was long before keto was kind of talked about, but a low carb diet that is also very good for many autoimmune diseases today.
Hmm.
Healing the body because you lower the inflammation level, the body can heal itself, and we were able to get rid of the medication and finally get pregnant after many rounds of IVF and complications and whatnot.
Yeah. Wow.
That made me a believer that there's something here, and the food and the fuel in the end was the one that was able to heal my wife. And I also went into this sort of a no meat, no wheat, no sugar type of diet at all. And I mean, I've been on that diet for a long time, over 15 years, and I feel great. And I mean, I'm performing athletically in the same level as I did when I was playing semi-pro hockey and whatever I did in the youth. And I mean, that's the power of, I think, thinking about these things early.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to kind of bottle up some of that learning I have had over the years. And I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert. I built, two healthcare companies before this company, and I've been in the trends for a long time. But I believe that there's something I can bring to the world and build an experience where we can actually make things transparent. I spent a decade before this in the space of access to care. How do you
Mm.
find the right doctor? How do you build the doctor network that will be good for the members and the patients? So I spent a lot of time on that, and 100 million people plus a year finding a doctor because the data we created at my last companies. So big impact in that space. And it was all about transparency. How do we make it available? How do we make who is the right type of doctor provider for your illness? That was the whole idea.
Yeah.
And now we're trying to kind of do the same a little bit here. Like, what would be the right nutrition for you to help you? And the first inning, when you build a new company or a new product, you have to build a box around it, like something simple you can start with. And we started this by the idea that 100 plus million people today, they eat supplements, pills, and powders every day, and none of them know if they eat the right things or they do anything for them. There's no understanding at all. And I saw the testing happening in like even Whole Foods, where kind of reputable place, and half the products you get from the shelf are not what they say they are if you
Mm.
test them truly.
Yeah.
That's kind of silly. So how do we make a system better? So we started to build the product based on the premise that can we measure and find your nutrient gaps, and can we fill them with nutrition products?
Hmm.
So we found out that the best way to measure today, that is accepted by the medical community and also by you and me, is to do a blood test. So we do a blood collection at home. We send it to a lab. We find the normal gaps. We do about 13 biomarkers today. The basic, lipid panels, A1C. We do vitamins, minerals, inflammation, and so forth. And then we also connect to the wearable devices. So I have, I wear the Ōura and the Apple Watch and the Whoop to kind of test the system. You don't need to have that many. But the point is that, that data in real time is giving you an idea how much you are consuming energy, calories, how do you recover, how much activity you have. And that combined together, we use an AI model to create the right nutrition plan. And then we send them to you in a convenient daily package that, you can just have a one pack a day. and they change every month automatically based on the data flowing. We test you again every 90 days
Okay.
to get the outcomes. And so if nothing happens, then we fix and change the model. And to make it more understandable, we decided to add a dietitian in the mix. So every person is paired with a dietitian who they meet on face-to-face on Zoom, like we are talking right now.
Okay.
And they can then communicate with that person on an app everyday basis. So that's the Elo first product that we created, and we are adding a lot more things in the coming years. But it's been really rewarding to build this from ground up, and I have now over 1,000 people who've been going through the whole system, and the feedback has been really great. And many people have had a big impact on the blood biomarkers. I think 90% today have seen an impact in the first 6 months.
That's amazing results, really. And I really love the mission because, like you said, it kind of helps distill things down because the complexity of things, especially with the confusion of we were talking about with diets and all the different things. And one person says this and, kind of getting through the noise, it ends up creating, I think for many people, and probably the ones that probably could use this the most, confusion and inaction because they're just overwhelmed by it. And it sounds like this could be kind of that wedge to really help folks that may be on the less healthy side who want to get healthy and just don't know how.
Yeah, and I think of course, the challenge always is that when you build a new product like this, and we are kind of in a bleeding edge of innovation, literally, because you have to bleed blood to do it. So there's a gateway that I hope in the coming years we can make it easier. Today, yeah. It can be still scary to prick a needle in your finger and bleed a couple of drops of blood. It's not for everybody, and also the price point of doing it this way is never going to be like it's always costing some money. Like today we are $99 a month, which is I think a fairly affordable price for all we give people, but still not for everybody. So my challenge always is in healthcare, and I'm being also we have a small family fund. We invest in healthcare companies and human performance companies, and it's always challenging in a way that you find really great company. I think Elo is one of those type of companies, and that this could help so many people who are struggling and who are unhealthy. But then that the people who are buying it the first are people maybe more like you and me and many of the listeners who are already aware of health, and they are already taking decisions and actions to stay healthy. And then we are looking maybe more than 30 years ahead, and what can we do when we are 80? Like, what will our life look like? We don't be frail. We will be like active and living good life. So it's always challenged that the new innovations are always adopted by the early adopters who tend to be healthier and wealthier in the space of health, for example. But I hope that in the future we are able to build systems that can also really help the people in the biggest need today, because we have 75% of people today in the US are overweight, and 50% soon are obese, and we know that many of those people, they're not going to live as long as their parents did. So for the first time ever in the history of our measurement that we have done as society and civilization, we have had a life expectancy has been lowering for the last 3 years, first time ever. Of course, the COVID had an impact.
Yeah.
Opioid epidemic had an impact, but the real impact has been the fact that the metabolic epidemic we have now is actually becoming real, and we are starting to see people dying at much younger age, and that's to me like really a warning sign, and that's a macro data point that makes me think every day, like what are we doing wrong? Like, right. And it's not companies like Elo or these new ideas won't fix it. We need to have also government intervention. I think we need to have taxation interventions. We need to do something much more drastic, and those are happening already in many countries around the world. Like in Europe, sugar has been taxed differently. There's no debacle about the gallon sodas. That's silly debacle we have here in the US, but they already kind of made it expensive to buy, and nobody needs to buy a gallon of soda. It's just silly. And the other point is that labeling things like tobacco labeling is now happening. I don't know anyone who smokes tobacco anymore. I mean, it went away. And still some people smoke, but the idea that you label and you sell this kills you, and you put like a really horrid photos on the packaging, like why would I smoke if that's the case?
Yeah.
Same thing is happening now in countries like Chile, in Mexico, where they're labeling the processed food, and the impact has been quite drastic already in the early innings.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely all oars in the boat need to be in the water at the same time to really pivot this. Like you said, it's such a macro thing, and you see these large numbers, and how do you attack that? And it has to be, multi-prong, I guess you could say, to really make a dent and quickly, because it directly correlates to what you see also, not just life expectancy, but the costs associated with that unhealthy living on the back end of your life. As you age, like you were saying, I mean, I plan to be 92 and playing with my great grandkids, you know what I mean? And running around, not having to live a less than optimal lifestyle, taking a lot of medicines and eating up a lot of my own money towards some of those interventions just to keep me going. And there's a time to pay for it, and it's either on the back end or now. And to me, now seems like a wiser one. We can get the habits built in.
It's a great words. We spend 2.6% today of the healthcare cost of 4.5 trillion a year into preventive care, and truly, that's not preventive care. That's mainly spent on colonoscopies and mammographies, which are important, and screening for cancer. But we don't spend hardly any money on the really preventing before we are getting sick. And I mean, it's almost cheaper. We could probably spend. So I always talk about this in a way that you have food in the US is about 6 trillion, the whole food industry.
Okay.
And health is about 4 trillion, 10 trillion combined. That's, almost half the GDP we have. And what if you could collide those two into one, and there would be a middle part where we could use the nutrition to help people stay healthier, use the healthcare dollars to get people the right food in need. We could really make a big dent. We could actually lower the cost of healthcare, and we could actually likely, reverse the whole curve of people being obese and people starting to die younger. And I think that's pretty meaningful. I mean, what would be more meaningful thing to do? And my wife, she spent, half her life to date in environment, and she was, drafting the Kyoto Agreement, Paris agreements back in the days, and worked on trying to focus on the environment in a way, like how do we prevent, the climate change? And I speak with her about this a lot. And I think my point of view today is that we can't fix the environment before we have fixed ourselves. If most people are getting obese, are afraid of dying younger, are thinking day to day about their own health, they will not be able to think about the second or the third generation behind us. And we have to fix that problem before we can fix the other existential problem, which is the climate.
Yeah. No, it's a good point on we kind of have to start with ourselves first before we can go out. And as we're parents, and that's our goal, right? As parents, is with that, at least in our homes, we want to leave it better for our kids and help facilitate those things. So, but you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So it's kind of important to do that self-care and to be able to then serve others too.
Yeah, and it's so interesting now in the last 2 years, because I think a lot of people have had time to reflect a bit about the life and the world, and definitely family. I mean, many people. I have many friends who are single, or who are they are maybe older. They have no kids anymore at home. Like, many people have been lonely. But then other people who have a family, and of course it's crazy time at times when you try to work and you have all the kids and everybody together. But it has brought a bit of this communal feeling that I was missing, at least myself. And I personally was really happy about the fact that you had this kind of slower 2 years. You don't travel a lot. You spend time together. You get to know each other again.
Yeah.
It's good and bad. I think it was really a valuable reminder. And I think we need those moments in life that we pause for a moment and look around and think about like what really is impactful, important for you and the world.
Yeah, that's a great point on, I think it dovetails into the theme of the podcast too, just rest and recovery. And we all need to take that step back every once in a while and just, I'm in a group, mastermind group, and we're going through Eckhart Tolle's, I think his book, I think is The Power of Now.
Or now, yeah.
Yeah. And just talking about that and like really just enjoying, the old smell the roses kind of mindset and just enjoy the moments rather than thinking what was or what will be. Just enjoy where you are right now and for what it is, and not have some kind of expectation of like you have to produce a result or something like that. The result is really enjoying the moment, enjoying that connection with family or friends or whomever you have it with.
Yeah, my head is maybe made of brick at times, and I think I read the book 5 times, and I think I start to finally now understand it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a meditation for me. I've been meditating for over a decade, and I still have a hard time doing it. But I think the point is that you don't have to be perfect. You need to have a practice that you try to do every now and then, and it just helps. And I think the power of now and this idea. Well, the simple idea I think in the book really is that. We are always living in the past or we are living in the future. We're always worried about the past or the future.
Yeah.
And we're actually living right now here. And usually things are pretty good at the moment at that very thing. Why do we worry all the time about the things that we can't influence? We can't change the future. We can't definitely change the past. And we tend to dwell in the past a lot.
Yes.
And it's like all these small things that you have around you have a big impact. Like my wife went, from being the kind of the environmental warrior to become a KonMari consultant working with Marie Kondo today. So the Architypes is another book that she's talking about how do you get rid of things that are physical possessions around you in your life that are dragging you down. And I think you can go to your garage or you can open any cupboard and look at in there and how many things you have there that are not important for you. They are there because why? You just bought them some years ago and you put them there and haven't used them. And so it's helping people to clean up all of that external mess in their life.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see that when you do that, it's almost like I call it external meditation in a way that you get rid of the things you don't need, and then you have all the things that you actually care about.
Yeah.
And your life has suddenly like more meaning and clarity. It's simple things can have a big impact.
Absolutely. I love that. And so that's what your wife does now?
Yes, it's helping now people one-on-one. You used to consult companies like Walmart and Nike to build better things, but now she's helping people one-on-one, and she's happier, and she's seeing the impact of her work every day in her life.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something to be said with that streamlining and, the reduction of stress and, kind of like you're saying with holding on to the past, why is that even sitting there? And yeah, I know I can relate to that, the constant purge of things. And it's like, why did I buy this? I don't know. But yeah, those are important things to kind of, again, focus on what is important in the prioritization in life and making it a little bit lighter. For us.
We have in family we have perfectly executed because of the kids. You get kind of sometimes you get carried away, but we've been trying to do it in a way that you have about 200 items per head in the family, and those are your items. And if you want to buy a new one, you need to get rid of something else. And it really has been tough at times because we started this years ago, and I think I've been kind of athlete and I like to do a lot of different things. So
yeah,
I took all my shoes from different places into one line, and I had 38 pairs of shoes. So of course you need like 8 pairs of climbing shoes and 2 pairs of mountaineering shoes. And I mean, I was looking at it, I was like, that's insane. Like I had no idea that I had more than 5.
Yeah.
But that kind of was a epiphany to me that maybe I don't need to own the Mount Everest boots anymore. I'm not gonna go there. So I'm done with that life.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Yeah. I can relate to the amount of running shoes I have in my closet is pretty out of control at times. But well, all right. What what does for you where do you want to take the company, I guess is the next question, is like, how do you see this for the next, 5 to 10 years, to really continue down that missional path?
Yeah, I think it's a key point for us in the beginning is to really build a system that people really like. I'm a big believer in this idea that, I want to have 1,000 super fans who really care about what you do, and then they can help you to build the next
Yeah.
chapters. And I have an idea where this will go, but I'm open, hearing the feedback and navigating based on what people really want. I know what I want, but and I might have been the kind of early persona for what we built, but in the end, it will be the members and the team and the customers and partners together will help us to define it. But my goal really is to build a system where we can credibly take the data from your body in different ways, different sensors. We can turn it into the right nutrition plan, and then we can deliver you that plan. Not give you guidance, but actually deliver you that nutrition. That's what we are doing in a small Vitrio. And I hope that in the next 5 to 10 years, there will be a world where we are starting to see the employers and health systems and even government and states to sponsor the right nutrition for the people in need.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I think we will see a massive shift of what type of companies you have, the big companies in the nutrition space and healthcare space. Because I don't think they will be the Yumly and the McDonald's and the Unilever necessarily doing that, but there will be the new breed of companies that are built for the new world. Because why would you give the keys again to the hen house for the people who are the wolves? I mean, not maybe the smartest thing to do. And I think, we as taxpayers might be saying that maybe not the best idea. Like, we gave the keys to school lunches for McDonald's and Yumly, and, now we are all going to die too young. So not maybe the best idea that we
youth diabetes issues and, obesity and such. Well, I mean, you make a great point too, of like, to me, it's empowering the people more to be able to do that, and not like, it's not that there's not value in some of those bigger things, but they can get lost in the shuffle, or to your point, we've just outsourced it and they just keep going. And the assumption is it's still okay when it's not. And there's no course correction. Somehow there seems like there's no accountability, or it takes a really long time to do any kind of real pivot. And it's this ground up kind of, hate to call it grassroots, but that's kind of where it's at, of reclaiming that. And kind of mentioned it like the last couple of years, I think have really helped amplify, if there's an opportunity out of a bad moment, that's it, to really reconsider how we're going about things and acknowledge the impact that what we consume, how it influences us individually and as a whole.
Exactly. I think, like it's important to when you do these things, like have the right, the thread. You want to have like a good plan for the future. I want to build the right things. I already, made money on other things. I don't need to make money. I want to build a really great, company and great products. But also at the same time, I'm a geek. I'm a technologist by trade, and I love building cool things. And sometimes, it's about kind of giving people ideas, like what could world be if it would be different. Mm-hmm. And I think, we are just getting next week. I think this won't probably go out in a few days, so I can already maybe talk about it. We are getting out a new product that is called Smart Protein in the next coming weeks. And I've been just geeking with this for 2 years, and I wanted to what would a protein product be for me if I want to make it right? And we now build it, and we're testing it for 6 months. I've been testing it for a year myself, and it's basically a product that we customize perfectly for you based on your activities. You can also do blood testing if you want, but you don't have to. So we take your wearable data, let's say from Garmin or Ōura or your Apple Watch, or even if you do Strava or Peloton or Tonal, we take that data in from the Apple Health. We customize the right protein blend for you.
Activity?
Based on activity, yeah.
Okay.
With AI. And then we send it to you. And it's all handmade for you. It's hand packed to you. There's even the packer's name in the back. So that somebody who packed this is hand done it, and you can pick the taste, the flavor. You can pick also pea or whey. But then what's really cool, because we have that connectivity with your activities, when you do an activity workout, you're going to go for a run for 2 hours, you're going to open the Elo app. It tells you in real time how much protein you need to optimize a recovery. So we built that thing.
That's awesome.
And it's just been super fun. Like, and we've been have like 100 people testing it, and they are absolutely loving this new idea. It's just a new thing that nobody thought about before, and we created that. And that's kind of what I love on this idea. You can build new things, and nutrition is people don't innovate in this way often in this space, but we kind of try to bring the people in the team who can really truly innovate. And it's been one of my co-founders. He spent a decade at Apple. He was the designer behind some of the products you use, and Tony Ives team for 10 years. And he built some of the best products in the world has ever seen. And he is now helping us to build, the right type of nutrition. So it's like, what would it look like if Apple would build like protein powder? That's what we're trying to do. And it's been super fun.
That sounds awesome. That gets me kind of excited, as an endurance athlete myself, and taking proteins to augment or whatever. And that's not that it's not helpful. It's 2 scoops, but to your point, maybe I needed, because of the level of effort I put out, I needed 3. And so I'm undernourishing, I'm under recovering, and that compounds negatively as well.
Yep. And we can add now electrolytes, we can add, collagen into your protein powder. So we add the things like, think about it in a way that the Elo brain that gives you the supplements, gives you the protein powder, gives you whatever comes later. They're all coming from the same brain that is thinking it for you. So you don't need to spend your time and your brain power to think about the micros and macros. We do it for you and give it to you in the most available manner. Some things given to you in the protein powder are going to be better than given to you in a pill form, because you want to have them with food, and protein is food.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is really cool. We'll look forward to seeing how that works out. I'll have to give that a go sometime. Well, all right. What did I miss? Because we're kind of running up on time, but did I miss anything that around what you all are doing and how they can find you, really?
Well, I think you can find Elo, Elo, and however we say it, it's elo.health is the website, and you can sign up there today. We are available nationwide, except we can't do blood testing today in New York. There are some regulations that we need to still go through that we get at the end of the year. But beyond that, we are in 49 states. And anyone can sign up, and we would love to kind of hear feedback. And we're truly trying to build something that is going to be differentiated. And I think one thing that I would also, maybe for the sake of the topic of the podcast, to maybe talk a moment. Like I said, recovery for me has been one of the key things, and I've been involved in a lot of this tracking stuff very early. So I was at Nokia, the small Finnish cell phone company back in the days, and I was in the team that was working on the first smartphone. This is like 4 or 5 years before iPhone and Android, and we had this chip in that phone that was turning the photos from landscape to portrait, so automatically, so you don't need to tilt them yourself. And that same chip was actually the same chip that was later put in the Nintendo Wii controller, the one that you can move around and so forth. So the team, next to me, they built the first step counter like 15 years ago, and we put it in the phones, and we had millions of people doing the first 10,000 steps. They came up with the 10,000 steps idea and so forth. So I got very early into that tracking, and before that, I was an athlete in my youth, and my hometown in Finland, there was a small company called Polar Electro. And they invented the heart rate meter. So in the 80s, I was already wearing the heart rate meter when I was doing my training. So I've been doing this longer than most people.
Yeah.
And because of that, I started to, when I started to invest about a decade ago with my wife, the first investment we did was Ōura. And it was like, my old buddies from my hometown in Finland who built this ring. And being involved a decade sidelines with Ōura and knowing exactly kind of how they did it, and try the first prototype and then the last 5 versions, and have now over 9 years of sleep data tracked with Ōura myself. I can really say that, if anyone wants to kind of think about recovery, I think Ōura is the best fitness tracker today, or sleep tracker today, because it is really non-invasive.
Okay.
And it really is helping you to understand a bit more about your sleep. They're not perfect yet telling what you can do about it. But I think most people, they just go sleep too late. And they are procrastinating, at night, like, let me look, I can check one more thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you really truly close the screens and you go sleep at around 10:30, you're gonna be so much more alert. And I have very few nights that I'm gonna go sleep after 11, and my recovery scores are 90s every day. So I mean, that for me has been the biggest single thing that is keeping me healthy and sane and energetic.
Well, I really appreciate that. That's a strong public service announcement for sure on, dialing in your sleep and the rest and recovery and the value to your point on whether it's a short season or not, just to get a better understanding of yourself by using these devices. I've used Whoop. I use BioStrap right now. I've not done Ōura. I was looking into it. But yet, whichever one you pick, use it and then to help make better choices. That's a great advocacy for it. So I appreciate that.
Because in the end, it's all about the fact that, like I said already, if you can measure something, you can improve it. And I don't think, I mean, we get often addicted to the measurement. That's not the whole way to do it. But
Yep.
it's having that feedback loop. And let's say when I have a big training ride, for example, tomorrow, I'm going to check out my Whoop score and my Ōura recovery score in the morning. And if it's like under 50 for some reason, I'm not going to do, a 5-hour ride.
Right.
I'm not going to go. I'm going to do like a 2-hour ride and be home and be fine. Because why would you we often push us too hard. Like we have a date in a calendar to do something, and then we end up doing it, and we just often get sick by doing it. And in the COVID world, you always got, do I have COVID or not? And then you go do like a massive training, like you do a full triathlon type of training almost, and then you get sick because your body is so weak. Even like 3 days after that sort of all-in training that you can get sick easily.
Yeah, 100%. That overtraining and under recovered. I can definitely relate to having some bouts with that myself. It was kind of the seeds, unfortunately, of even going down the path of doing this podcast was doing those types of things of not really accounting for that stuff. I wasn't tracking, but nonetheless, I could tell I was tired. But I felt like I had to do this hard workout rather than being wise and dialing it back. I mean, at the end of the day, we're everyday athletes, right? We're trying to maintain longevity and health. So it's not like I'm going out to break a world record. So what am I really achieving by blowing myself up with that 5-hour ride as opposed to the wiser thing, like you said, yours 2 hours would have been better. It's still better than zero.
Yeah, and you feel the same. You feel good after it, and
Yeah.
and I think the bottom line, I think that maybe I'm getting older, or whatever, but I'm feeling that we need to have more empathy for ourselves, and we have often empathy. We talk about it. We are empathetic to our family and friends, and we are good beings, but we are often very hard asses on ourselves.
True.
I think we need more empathy.
Yeah.
And accept the fact that we are getting older, and it's annoying when you have tracked travel for decades and your PRs are getting further away. But that's just life at times.
Yeah, 100%. Totally understand. Well, Ari, I appreciate it. I like to close things out with a couple questions, bit of a hot seat. What are you reading right now?
I'm reading a book called Ministry of Future. Amazing sci-fi near term about the climate.
Oh, okay, cool. So, what are you listening to right now, whether it's music or podcast?
I'm very bad at music. I do podcast, and
Okay.
I've been lately listening quite a bit from Peter Attia.
Okay. Yeah, Peter T is a great one. Definitely a great way to geek out on some stuff. So last one, what is your go-to rest and recovery method?
The key is to focus on sleep. So after every time I train, I try to do the right nutrition. I used to eat like a horse after my training. Now I do the protein before, so I can eat normal food and normal amount, and that actually has a big impact on my weight and my leanness. I've been much leaner than I've been ever before after doing that. And then the sleep. I mean, I try to go sleep 10:30 every night. Very dark room, cold environment, I have earplugs. I open almost always to a shower right before I go sleep, so you have the body temperature you just sleep faster.
Okay.
But it really works. And I've been writing. I think there's a blog post about from my habits, and there's a long list of things I do also. But it's been dialed over the last decade, and I sleep better than most.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate your time and insights, and look forward to seeing where Elo heads up.
Cool. Thank you so much.